Hi everybody, I'm Flynn. I am the Scoutmaster of Boy Scout Troop number 10 in Columbia, South Carolina. And during this time of COVID, we have not been able to meet together as a troop, really since March, I guess. It's been mid-March since we've been together. Our summer camp got canceled. We had a crew that was scheduled to go to Philmont. They couldn't go. So one of the concerns that we've had over the summer is how do we pull our troop back together and re-energize them moving into the fall semester and into the winter. We've got a big troop. We've got about 115 scouts and somewhere around 25 or 26 adult leaders. So it's a big group and we're a very cohesive group and we do a lot of fun things together. Started thinking with all this time, like everybody else, I've been sitting at home a lot and working from the house and I've had some time to think. And when I have time to think, then things start to go a little crazy. Like, 10 years ago, I had the idea that I was going to ride my bike from across the United States, start in California and ride back to South Carolina. It would be something that would be epic, I feel like this is the time for something epic. I can't do the bike thing. My knees aren't good enough anymore. They've got some age on them. I don't believe I'd make it past the Rocky Mountains. So I started thinking, well, I could hike the Appalachian Trail. Well, I don't have 6 months to through hike the Appalachian Trail. I'd love to do it in segments. I've already got a few of the segments. I'd like to put them all together at some point. But again, I don't feel like that's something that's epic, that's different, that's exciting. I need something that would be inspiring and something that these scouts might take away and say, hey, I could do that. And so the idea, I started thinking, well, what if I built a homemade raft and floated down the Mississippi River like Huck, Finn, and Tom Sawyer? And so that idea was an idea that I floated to some friends of mine, some very good friends of mine, perhaps even my best friends, when we were having lunch about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. And here was their response to that. We are discussing, this is the inception, the initial meeting of the flight or the float of the Huckleberry Flynn, named by Ty. Good. And this is, of course, a raft. What I want to do is build a raft, a homemade raft, and float from Columbia to Charleston on the raft. So, Kyle, what are your thoughts there?
That's the best idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, Kyle's been over here giving me the top 10 reasons top things that could go wrong. And a lot of skepticism about the ability to actually put all this together and do it and survive. Yeah, survival is the goal. That's the goal number one, is survival. Now your thoughts? Exactly. The next step is to actually build a prototype raft and take it on a sea trial in the river to see if it can be done. So that's next. Even amongst my closest friends, there's a heavy dose of skepticism. Now, I'm not sure if that's Flynn, you won't build it, or Flynn, you can't build it, or Flynn, you don't have the engineering and construction ability to make it happen. Well, challenge accepted. You might have also picked up in that conversation that we talked about starting with the Mississippi River and how much that really sounds like folly. And as epic as that will be, and that ultimately remains the goal, wouldn't it be a whole lot smarter and a whole lot more manageable to first start locally? And so we've got a river here. The Congaree River is the confluence of the Broad and Saluda rivers. It starts here in Columbia and flows down through the Congaree National Park and ultimately into the Santee Cooper system and to Charleston and the Atlantic Ocean. My goal now is to build a homemade raft and to float it down the Congaree River on an overnight trip. Now, I will say that Ty came up with the great idea of the Huckleberry Flynn. I think that's the name of the raft, the name of the adventure. I did what most people would do these days, I guess, and I've searched the internet for how do you make a homemade raft, and I came up with all kinds of different ideas. I've watched so many YouTube videos here in the last week and a half, it would blow your mind. I mean, I saw ways to make a raft out of pool noodles and plastic bottles and 55-gallon drums. Those were popular. And one guy made them out of plastic trash bags, made a survival raft out of plastic trash bags. I mean, just crazy stuff. But the one I liked the most was from a guy named Luke, and I believe his YouTube channel is Catfish and Carp. He also has one called Outdoor Boys. He used plastic storage bins, 18-gallon Sterilite storage tubs, attached up underneath a piece of plywood, and used that as a flotation platform. He makes them in 4x8 segments, and you can link these 4x8 modules together to make a bigger raft. So you can make one 4x8, it can be 8x8, it can be 12x8, 16x8, just as big as you want it, depending on how many times you link these together. 10 tubs under each one. It looks like a very simple and elegant design. I invite you to join me on this journey. And the fun that I'm gonna have is sharing it with everybody else. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button down there, like it, subscribe it, and hit the bell too. That'll give you notifications when we post something different and something new as we go along this. We got a lot of different things to figure out. We got to figure out how much weight this thing can hold. We got to figure out, is the design good? Does it need, is 4x8 sufficient? Do we need to make it 8x8 or 12x8? How does that affect the stability? I mean, I'm 235 pounds, so I got to know, is 4x8 big enough for me to be even going to be able to function here? Are we going to put some kind of propulsion on this? I've got some ideas for a propeller or for a paddle wheel or even for a sail. Or is it something that I'm going to be able to paddle with, like with a traditional canoe paddle? Or do I need like a stand-up paddleboard paddle? A lot of different questions, a lot of different things that we're going to answer and we're going to experiment with over the course of this journey. But the only way that you're going to be able to join it with us is to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications as they come along. So I am excited about this. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Please join us.